Hi guys, it's Joe Ayers here again, the old Professor Emeritus, giving you some pragmatic advice about how to do a thesis or dissertation in a fairly efficient manner so you can get out of graduate school, get a job, make a couple of bucks. We've done several videos in this series, 8 of them to this point. This will be the 9th one. And we covered topics like selecting your advisor, selecting your topic, selecting the committee, making sure that you follow your advisor's advice, which a lot of students don't do, setting up your work schedule, doing your bibliography, reviewing the literature, stating the problem, which we did last time, and this time it's about how you review the literature leading up to that particular problem. You can find all of these videos on YouTube, or you can go to my website, Joe Ayers Cares, and they're all there. So, how do you do the review of literature? You know, it's a bit different than doing the review of literature in an article for a journal. Journals are restricted to 20 pages. Theses or dissertations don't seem to have any restriction at all. I once reviewed a 5-volume dissertation. Volume, you know, we're talking about 500 or 600 pages for a volume. Unbelievable. They actually paid me to review that one because, you know, who's going to sit down and read 5 volumes? Anyway, they're much more extensive. Yours, I would suggest you don't be that crazy, but you're going to have to start farther up the ladder in the literature than most articles do. They start somewhere mid-range. They've got a perspective, and they stay within that perspective. So, in this particular case, what you're going to do is write an inverted V. Your introduction is going to be extremely broad, and you're going to continue to narrow that until you get down to a very precise statement, the statement of your problem, your hypotheses. So, in our case, the last time when we were talking about stating the problem, we said you were interested in the question of making student learning more efficient, where they would retain material from lectures better, and you're going to do that with improving their note-taking. So, let's say that's what you're doing with your review of literature. Well, you won't be able to do the same thing that was in that article that we started with. You're going to have to start broader. The article starts somewhere in the area of lectures and what's been known about lectures and how to improve them and student behavior and lecture halls, all that sort of stuff. You're going to have to start somewhere much broader in the general area of what people think about how people most efficiently learn. So, for instance, let's say there's the idealistic version. And that's the version where you say a student is self-motivated. The instructor's role is to simply help the student. The student wants to find out X. The instructor knows something about that, so they send the student off to this place. And they wait for the student to come back and say, well, I need what do you think about this? And the instructor's role is basically a support role. The student is self-motivated and goes on their own. A much different approach to that is to say the student is not self-motivated. The student needs to be externally motivated. They won't just naturally learn things like physics. You're going to have to structure an environment in which they can gradually learn that. And so you argue those two positions. You say, well, you work in a public school system, which essentially assumes the student is not self-motivated. You have to motivate them. You have to provide them with the structure and all of that. So that's where you're going to be. You're going to be working in that area. Now, you see what you've done in your review of literature here? You gave us the broad theoretical perspective, and then bam! You said, I'm going to stay inside the other directed point of view. Now, I don't have to deal with any of the rest of that literature. I'm going to deal with that literature. So, you deal with it, and that's probably about where your article started. So, you work that down, keep narrowing it, until you get to the situation where you say, well, I'm interested in lectures. Because a lot of students are in lectures, and some of them just fall by the wayside. They just don't seem to get it. We need to see if we can improve how well they do in lectures. And some people have looked at note-taking and how effective that is. I'm going to be looking at that as well. But I'm going to do it from a slightly different perspective. Instead of just having them take notes, I'm going to teach them how to take notes and see if the different methods of instruction and teaching them how to take notes is more efficient than just taking notes without any of that kind of instruction. So now you've got your review of literature and you brought it right down to your statement of problem. And it's all connected. Before you do anything else, go to your advisor, give it to your advisor and say, what do you think? Have I got everything covered? Is there stuff that I need to have in there that I don't have in there, and so on and so forth? And your advisor will probably say, well, you missed this, and you missed that, and missed the other thing. By the way, as you're writing all of these things, and you're citing John Dewey or something about how grade levels should be structured, make sure that you put John Dewey's citation in there, and put all of those citations right at the end of this review of literature already. So you don't have to go back and do all that stuff. Do it as you're going by it. So there you have it. We've got the basic format for doing a review of literature. We've got you up to the statement of problem. And so and through that review of literature, now we're going to turn to the method section. That'll be for next time. See you then.